The official podcast for It Welcome to Derry has dropped some absolutely mind-bending revelations about the HBO series. And trust us when we say these insights will change how you watch the show forever. Hosted by Marc Bernardin, a TV and comic book writer who describes himself as a professional nerd and reformed journalist. Alongside Princess Weeks, a pop culture critic and horror enthusiast, the podcast features executive producers Andy and Barbara Muschietti, diving deep into the terrifying world of 1962 Derry. From shocking creative decisions to connections with other Stephen King works, here are 25 incredible facts that will blow your mind. I have tried to summarize the main inputs of the podcast so that you can save time and breeze through this video to know it all. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Demon family car scene was designed as a statement of intent. Andy Muschietti, who directed the It films and the pilot episode of Welcome to Derry, revealed that the opening car sequence with young Matty Clements was meticulously crafted to establish the show's horrifying tone immediately. The scene follows Pennywise's signature modus operandi, creating situations that appear safe and innocent before descending into madness. Muschietti explained that it seasons its victims with adrenaline before killing them, making fear salt the meat. The escalation from a wholesome nuclear family offering a ride to a hitchhiking boy, to spelling bee word games involving cadaver and strangulation, to the sister playing with rotting liver, and finally to a grotesque birthing scene was designed to lull viewers into ease before perverting that comfort. The directors wanted audiences to immediately understand that nothing in Derry is safe, and childhood itself is trauma in this world. Barbara Muschietti admitted they expected studio pushback on this intense opening, especially since they shot it after 3 other episodes due to strike timing, but instead received applause for the bold creative choice. Matty's pacifier represents deep psychological trauma. The creative choice to have 12-year-old Matty Clements sucking on a pacifier wasn't random. It was a deliberate storytelling accelerator. Andy Muschietti explained that placing a foreign object like a pacifier with a pre-teen immediately creates a vacuum of logic, forcing viewers to draw their own conclusions. The pacifier signals that Matty is going through serious trauma and uses this infant comfort object as a coping mechanism. More significantly, it indicates he lacks a normal emotional support system. Combined with his black eye and the fact he's found alone in a movie theatre, the visual shorthand communicates volumes about his troubled home life without requiring lengthy exposition. Barbara Muschietti noted that Matty's awareness and shame about the pacifier, constantly hiding it, makes the choice even more poignant, showing a child who knows this behaviour is abnormal but desperately needs the comfort anyway. Cold War nuclear anxiety permeates every frame. The 1962 setting was specifically chosen to exploit Cold War nuclear fears. Princess Weeks and Marc Bernardin discussed how the juxtaposition of supernatural horror with real-life anxiety about nuclear warfare, duck-and-cover bomb drills, and radiation-induced birth defects creates layered dread. The radio announcement in the Demon family's car explicitly warns about radiation posing a global risk, resulting in highly unusual birth defects, directly foreshadowing the mutant baby that kills Matty. Andy Muschietti confirmed they deliberately exploited these fears, noting he couldn't imagine being a child in that era when you're constantly reminded that nuclear bombs might fall any day and your only defense is hiding under a table. The Music Man choice was brilliantly symbolic. The decision to feature the 1962 musical The Music Man was thematically perfect for Welcome to Derry's narrative. Barbara Muschietti revealed they originally wanted to create an original musical number, as both she and Andy love musicals, but budget constraints led them to seek a Warner Brothers title from 1962. Marc Bernardin brilliantly analysed how the musical itself is about an outsider arriving in a bucolic small town and disrupting what had been a Norman Rockwell existence by exposing ley lines of conflict beneath the surface. The protagonist, Harold Hill, is essentially the Pennywise of music, as Andy joked, noting they even have similar hair. The song "You Got Trouble" becomes haunting when recontextualized over a black screen before the opening scene, transforming a joyful musical number into something deeply unsettling. The Music Man returns at the episode's climax, when the demon baby literally emerges from the movie screen to massacre children in the theatre, forever ruining the otherwise wholesome film for viewers. Major Leroy Hanlon explores racial otherness in military context. Giovanna Depo plays Major Leroy Hanlon, a Korean War veteran and Air Force officer who becomes one of the first to notice Derry's sinister shadows. Princess Weeks noted the significance of the Hanlon family name for IT fans. This is Mike Hanlon's grandfather, connecting directly to one of the Losers Club members from the original story. Welcome to Derry explores Leroy's position as the first black officer at the Derry Air Force Base. Princess described small towns like Derry as having sundown town energy, even if not explicitly called that. Marc Bernardin praised Adepo's casting, noting he played a similar role as the first black man in an unwelcoming place in HBO's Watchmen, with consulting producer Cord Jefferson having written Adepo's major Watchmen episode. Dick Halloran creates major Shining Universe connection. Chris Chalk portrays Dick Halloran, a community leader in 1962 Derry, creating one of the most significant Stephen King universe connections in the series. Princess Weeks revealed she knew he was playing Halloran because she researched it online, describing herself as a dork for the deep dive. For those unfamiliar, Dick Halloran is the wise old man in The Shining who possesses telepathic abilities called The Shining. Marc Bernardin noted this opens promising storytelling about Halloran's early life, what it was like being a person with a gift he can control and understand, and his relationship to power. Halloran appears in King's 1986 novel It as one of the founders of the Black Spot, a bar catering to African-American soldiers that was burned down by the Maine Legion of White Decency in an act of racial hatred initiated by Pennywise. Halloran used his shining ability to find survivors and rescue them, including Will Hanlon, who became Mike Hanlon's father. Lily's father was literally turned into pickles. One of the darkest backstories revealed involves Lily Bainbridge's father meeting a grotesque fate, being turned into mush and placed in pickle jars. Princess Weeks expressed shock that Lily's classmates used this trauma to bully her, filling her locker with pickle jars. This traumatic history explains why adults dismiss Lily when she reports hearing Matty's voice through her shower drain. She's already labelled crazy by the community. The pickle jar incident becomes a running dark joke in the podcast, with Princess calling it jarring that classmates would make such casual jokes about someone's father being literally murdered and preserved. As Princess noted, this trauma means people don't trust her, and anything she says cannot be taken seriously, a form of silencing that makes her situation even more dangerous. Marge is a heat-seeking missile of conformity. Marc Bernardin described Lily's friend Marge as a grenade that's going to go off at some point, calling her a bit of a heat-seeking missile who just wants to belong. In the scene where Lily hears Matty in the pipes, Marge's response is telling. "What you're saying is crazy, and I don't mean to use that word." She then advises Lily to just get through the remaining 2 months until summer without giving everyone something new to whisper about you. Bernardin analysed Marge as someone whose friendship with Lily may have been circumstantial, Lily being the one person who would befriend her. Now that their friendship seems rocky, Marge eyes the popular mean girls, calculating that if she can be meaner than them, they might recognise game and invite her into their social circle. This political navigation of high school hierarchy, the podcast suggests, is going to go bad. Princess Weeks invoked Carrie, noting that the conformist kids get theirs in their own way, especially the shiftiest one, who gets very, very specifically ruined in ways that are gonna be fun to watch. Teddy's Holocaust connection creates devastating horror. Princess Weeks praised the setup of Teddy discussing with his father the bad things happening in Derry's sewers, which his father connects to Holocaust horrors. Teddy's father reveals, "Your grandparents escaped Buchenwald, their entire families murdered. The skin of Jewish prisoners used for lampshades." Marc Bernardin confirmed that this connection serves multiple purposes. It grounds supernatural horror in historical atrocity, establishes generational trauma as a theme, and creates a parallel between its evil and human evil. The lampshade appearing in his nightmare suggests it feeds on these existing traumas, exploiting fears already embedded in family history. The movie theatre massacre subverts all expectations. The climactic theatre scene represents one of the boldest narrative choices in modern horror television. Andy Muschietti explained the creative reasoning. What a better way of doing it than presenting a set of characters that people believe will be the protagonists of this series for the rest of the run and kill them all at the end of the episode. It just felt right. Barbara Muschietti framed it as walking the thin line between honouring the work you've done but not repeating yourself and keeping people on their toes. Best way to keep people on their toes is by cutting them off. The scene features the demon baby from the opening sequence, now grown larger, emerging from the Music Man screen where Matty appears holding it. The creature massacres Teddy, Phil and Susie, leaving only Lily and Ronnie to escape. Princess noted, "This keeps viewers on your toes because she was ready to be invested in Teddy and Phil, only to have the show redirect focus to this young black girl and this other white girl who's already perceived as an outsider, characters who will be believed even less than the boys would have been." The series was conceived as 3 seasons going backward in time. One of the most ambitious structural revelations is that Welcome to Derry was originally pitched as a 3-season arc moving backward through Pennywise's cycles. Barbara Muschietti explained, "They approached legendary Peter Roth at Warner Brothers at the beginning of 2020, right when the pandemic started with this innovative concept." Andy detailed the timeline. Season 1 is in 1962, and Season 2 would happen in 1935, which is the next cycle, and it would all resolve in 1908. This backward structure honours Pennywise's 27-year hibernation cycle. It awakens to terrorise a new generation, then sleeps for 27 years. The Muschiettis emphasised that each season would explore a different cycle while maintaining the central anchor of Derry itself. Andy noted, "We only did Season 1 so far. We're very happy with it. We'll see what happens with the rest." This structure allows the series to explore different eras of Derry's dark history while avoiding repetition, with each season featuring new characters but maintaining the connective tissue of bloodline relationships and generational trauma. Pennywise's 27-year cycle has deep mythological roots. The podcast extensively discussed the significance of Pennywise's 27-year feeding cycle, a cornerstone of its mythology. Barbara Muschietti explained that the 27-year gap between seasons reflects Pennywise's cycle. He goes to sleep and he wakes up to terrorise the next generation, basically. This pattern allows it to feed on a fresh crop of victims with each awakening, while ensuring the previous generation has largely forgotten or suppressed their childhood trauma. The cycle creates what Princess Weeks called generational trauma, though she noted this term didn't exist when King wrote the book. That's what it is. Stephen King never explicitly explains why specifically 27 years, leaving it mysterious, but the interval represents a generational gap. By the time Pennywise awakens, the children who survived have grown into adults who've forgotten their fears, leaving new children vulnerable. Stephen King gave his blessing and got really excited. Barbara Muschietti revealed a crucial detail about the series' development. They specifically sought Stephen King's blessing before proceeding. "We always want his blessing because we admire him so much," she explained. When Andy pitched the idea of going backward in time through 27-year cycles, with each season exploring a different Pennywise awakening, King got really excited by the idea. This enthusiastic response gave the Muschiettis confidence to approach Warner Brothers with the ambitious multi-season concept. Andy emphasised the importance of King's approval. The reverence for King's source material permeates every creative decision on the show. Barbara noted that she and Andy loved the book deeply, and despite making 2 movies about it, they still feel the need to tell more of the story. The Muschiettis were imprinted by horror in childhood Argentina. Andy and Barbara Muschietti's passionate commitment to it stems from their childhood in Argentina, where they were exposed to horror at ages 6 and 7. Barbara described how they grew up with 4 TV channels and one channel, Canal Tres, Channel 13, aired a show every Saturday called Trip to the Unexpected. This programme showed horror movies from any period of time, from any country. Essentially, a hodgepodge of whatever licence they could get their hands on. This early exposure imprinted them with horror as a fundamental part of their creative DNA. Andy explained that reading It during that formative era of life meant you're imprinted with it in a magical way, in your childhood and your early teens. Everything that you read and you like stays with you forever. Guillermo del Toro suggested adding the fly to the liver scene, one of the most disgusting moments in the opening sequence, when the demon family's daughter plays with rotting liver and a fly buzzes around it, came from legendary director Guillermo del Toro. Andy Muschietti revealed he showed the scene to del Toro, whom he always looks up to and tries to show him everything he does. Del Toro's response was enthusiastic, but included one critical note. "That's amazing, but yeah, put a fly cut on. Put a fly cut on." Andy laughed at the memory, explaining how this simple addition completes it, seals the deal. You hear a fly, you can tell that liver smells like shit. Andy couldn't think of anything more horrible than liver, making it the perfect grotesque choice. Del Toro's fly detail transforms the scene from merely weird to actively nauseating, demonstrating how small directorial choices create massive impact. It Chapter 2 originally had a 4-hour director's cut. Barbara Muschietti dropped a fascinating revelation about the original length of It Chapter 2, explaining why they pushed for a television series format for Welcome to Derry. It Too, the first director's cut, was 4 hours. This revelation provides context for their television pivot. Barbara recalled panicking during It Chapter 2 prep, having a weekend meeting in Toronto with writer Gary Dorberman, where the three of us decided that we would present to the studio It Chapter 2 and It Chapter 3. They were excited about splitting the story, but the studio said, "Absolutely no, you're gonna do It Chapter 2. Andy confirmed they completely forgot about this attempted 2-film split. It was a very long script, I remember. It was a script that could be actually divided in 2. This experience taught them that cinema couldn't contain all the story they wanted to tell, making television's more canvas, more real estate, essential for properly exploring King's sprawling narrative with more characters and ability to articulate their journeys in a different way. Generational trauma and bloodline connections are central themes. Barbara Muschietti emphasised that while Welcome to Derry features a new cast of characters, with a few of our characters, there's a bloodline component to the characters we already know. And that's very important because, it is about generational trauma. She acknowledged this terminology didn't exist when King wrote It, but that's what it is. Pennywise shows up to scare a new generation. Andy added that viewers will understand these connections as they progress through episodes 1 and 2. They're going to start seeing the connections with the characters that we know before. The Hanlon family provides the clearest example. Major Leroy Hanlon is grandfather to Mike Hanlon from the Losers Club, with Will Hanlon, whom Dick Halloran saves from the Black Spot fire, connecting the generations. This bloodline structure allows the series to feel both fresh and familiar, with new protagonists whose family histories connect to established It mythology. Pennywise, as shapeshifter, provides a fountain of endless pain. Andy Muschietti described one of the significant advantages of It as a horror antagonist. The creature's shape-shifting nature makes it a fountain of endless pain. Barbara noted, a plus we have with Pennywise in particular, with It, is that we don't need to repeat ourselves because it is a shapeshifter. This fundamental characteristic means the creative team can endlessly invent new incarnations tailored to different eras and fears. Each time period brings specific cultural anxieties, as demonstrated by the 1962 focus on nuclear fallout and radiation-induced mutations manifesting as the demon baby. Andy continued, of course, it's a different era, different year. Like, the fears are partially different because of specific things that were happening in the era. So the kids were scared of this or that. And that's, it's a non-challenge, actually. It's one of those, opportunities that are really amazing. We can create more creatures, more incarnations. The macroverse and its gender remain deliberately mysterious. The podcast revealed fascinating details about its cosmic origins and ambiguous gender, demonstrating the creators' commitment to preserving King's cryptic approach. Andy explained their aim is to shed light on all those mysteries, but carefully. Now we answer some of them, we speculate about others, we leave, again, we create another plethora of question marks for the effect to keep working. Regarding its gender, Barbara noted uncertainty. It may be a female, by the way, we're not sure. Andy elaborated on the novel's ambiguity. At its end, Ben Hanscom finds the spider's nest with eggs and returns and says, "It's a female." Barbara then posed the philosophical question, is God a man or a woman? The macroverse, the cosmic realm it originates from, remains largely unexplored territory. Jason Fuchs wrote the pilot with musical theatre background. Jason Fuchs, who co-wrote the pilot episode with the Muschiettis and serves as co-showrunner with Brad Caleb Kane, brought crucial musical theatre expertise to Welcome to Derry. Both Fuchs and Kane have Broadway roots and are big fans of musical theatre, with both having performed in musicals themselves. Kane notably provided the singing voice for Aladdin in Disney's 1990s animated film. This background directly influenced the pilot's central use of the Music Man. Fuchs explained their original ambition. When we began brainstorming the opening, we briefly considered writing an original musical number, but quickly realised that would be a monumental task. Their musical literacy transformed what could have been a simple period detail into a thematically rich element that haunts the entire episode, with the demon baby ultimately emerging from the movie screen during the Music Man's climactic theatre massacre. Horror and humour balanced through careful calibration. Andy Muschietti articulated his philosophy on balancing horror and humour, crediting Stephen King with teaching him this delicate balance. When Princess asked how they maintain this equilibrium, Andy explained, "There's always a line, you know. You can use humour. The real refinement happens in the edit room." And Stephen King, for him, was the first indication that horror and humour can live together. Barbara added the humanistic dimension. It also boils down to human nature, you know. It's like comedy or laughter are necessary even in the darkest moments. People tell jokes at funerals, basically, because it's a coping mechanism. This grounded approach ensures humour never undercuts horror, but instead makes it more relatable. Children dying establishes the stakes of lost innocence. Princess Weeks identified a core theme that defines it as a franchise. One of the things that it has always done that I think really has always rocked me, and will come up later in this episode, is that it really does deal with children dying. And I think it's important to remember, like that's kind of the stakes of this franchise, is like this loss of innocence. Starting the pilot with Matty, this very pacifier-wearing child trying to escape and then meeting his demise, it's just a reminder in Derry, no one is safe. Marc Bernardin built on this. The idea that childhood is trauma is something that they put on the stage immediately with like, childbirth is trauma. This willingness to show children in genuine peril separates it from sanitised horror. As Jason Fuchs told Decider, they wanted audiences to feel, no matter who you bond with, whatever characters you feel close to, nobody is safe, right from the beginning. So your favourite characters might not be safe. Be careful who you bond with. Subverting expectations by killing protagonists was essential. The creative team deliberately structured the pilot to subvert audience expectations about who the protagonists would be. Andy Muschietti explained their reasoning. You want to create an event that gives the audience a sense that if these kids were smoked at the end of the first episode, nothing is sacred. In this world, no one will be safe. So technically, that was the intention. The pilot carefully develops Phil, Teddy, Lily and Ronnie as what appears to be the new Losers Club, investing audiences emotionally in their friendship and their quest to find out what happened to Matty. Princess added that their guilt about Matty, Phil and Teddy feeling they weren't good friends, Lily feeling she spurned him, makes their investment in trying to figure out what happened to him make sense. Then the theatre massacre kills most of them, leaving only Lily, already dismissed as crazy, and Ronnie, a young black girl. The hosts compared this to Scream and Buffy, where investing audiences through every means possible before subverting expectations teaches that nothing is really safe. The mutant baby embodies Cold War nuclear fallout fears. The mutant baby that bookends the pilot episode represents the perfect horror incarnation for 1962. Jason Fuchs explained their creative process. We wanted to do it with a different incarnation of it, one that tapped into the anxieties of the era. Set in 1962, during the height of the Cold War, we drew inspiration from fears surrounding nuclear fallout, radiation, and mutations, which all contributed to the creation of this opening sequence. The creature first appears during the grotesque birthing scene in the demon family's car, emerging with wings and an umbilical cord trailing behind as it flies around. Marc Bernardin described the opening as presenting mutant babies in cars, mutant babies in theatres. By the theatre massacre, the baby has grown significantly larger, bursting through the Music Man screen to kill children. This specific incarnation works because it combines primal fears, dangerous babies, corrupted innocence, with era-specific Cold War nuclear anxiety, making it historically grounded while remaining supernaturally terrifying. Marvelous verdict. The genuine hard work of the makers is the reason behind the greatness of the show. The It Welcome to Derry podcast reveals a production team deeply committed to honouring Stephen King's source material while pushing boundaries in how they tell horror stories. Every creative decision serves the larger goal of making Derry feel genuinely unsafe, and the first episode has already shown that the show can hold our attention. The connections to The Shining through Dick Halloran, the exploration of racial dynamics through the Hanlon family, and the ambitious backward-through-time structure across planned seasons all demonstrate a series thinking bigger than typical horror fare. It is expanding King's universe in ways that honour the source while creating something genuinely fresh and terrifying for a new generation. Do let me know in the comments below about your thoughts on the same, and share your take on the first episode that has already been released. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already,